everyone. Hi, welcome to the GTG podcast. So this is the first episode that we're doing. It's going to be our pilot episode. My name is Aidan Donnelly. I'm one of the co-founders of GTG Coaching, and I'm with my business partner, another co-founder, James McKeen. So just to kind of give an idea of what GTG Coaching is. So at the minute, we're basically a gym or a private gym that operates in the city centre of Edinburgh. And we deal mostly with injury prevention, recovery from injury, and getting people back to activities and being active and back to performance in sports and those kind of areas. Just by helping people how to move better, how to understand how to move better, how their body works, and just trying to get them stronger. The reason it's called GTG Coaching is the idea of it's called give to get, so that you kind of have to give like commitment, time, energy in order to sort of get results and get what you want back from it. It's not just a one-way street, which a lot of the times in our industry, in the fitness industry, it's kind of made to seem like results can be gotten by not having to put in a ton of effort, or that it's very much a one-way street. So what we seek to do is empower people and help them become self-sufficient and get them to sort of just, I guess, dedicate their time and just give their effort towards whatever their goal is, which is usually centered around, injury prevention, overcoming injury, sports performance, that kind of idea. So that's it in a nutshell. So what we're going to do today is just have a bit of an interview with James McKeen and find out a wee bit more about James McKeen, and just see how that goes. And then if it's utterly crap, we'll just not do another one again and we'll just sack it off. Okay, so kind of to start from James, basically first off, where are you from? So we have similar accents. So where are you from?
Yes, I'm from Belfast, but I was born in Ballymena.
What's the difference between Belfast and Ballymena?
About 50 miles.
That's all you need to know if you're not familiar with that.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Okay, when did you come over to Edinburgh?
About 13 years ago.
Okay, and for what reason? Right.
I came over for a job in a health club.
Right, so were you doing anything back in Ballymena before then in sort of health and fitness industry?
Before then, I was in Kuwait and I was training in Kuwait.
Okay, nice. So came over here 13 years ago, roughly same time as I came over as well. Where did you start off? What was the first job you had?
The first job I ever had was Fitness First in Boucher Road. Yeah, for 8 months. I was there as a personal trainer stroke fitness instructor.
And then when you came over to Edinburgh, what did you do?
I worked in David Lloyd, or Next Generation, down in New Haven.
Yep.
Again, I was a personal trainer there. After that, I moved up to Virgin Active, up in the Omni Centre. Mm-hmm. Worked there for about 18 months, and then met up with Ollie, and we worked together, and then kind of introduced to you. Must have been about 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think I started at Virgin in 2011 or 2012, and that's when I met you. And then obviously I went off to do my internship and then came back, and we'd already moved in the current premises with Ollie. So Ollie Jessup is our other business partner and co-founder, and you guys were then in business, and that's when I made your transition as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So basically, what got you into the fitness industry?
So what got me into the fitness industry is a lot of people usually say, I played sport and I had a passion for health and fitness. And that's fine, it's a little bit different. I grew up in Northern Ireland with a dad who had rheumatoid arthritis. And sometimes I used to watch him crawl to the bathroom to get ready in the morning. And I just made a decision when I was 17 that I didn't want to kind of live that kind of life. So I started lifting weights, and I started playing football. And it wasn't until I was about 20, 21 that I decided, right, I want to actually do this as a career and have the purpose of helping people. So that's my story.
Okay. So, right, with that, so let's say you have someone who started in this more of a sporting background and then got into it for a passion for health and fitness and that kind of, let's call it standard way. The way you entered the fitness industry, do you think that made any difference in terms of your outlook to it and the way you kind of address things now, or do you know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So the fitness industry as a whole can be, what am I trying to say here? If you don't have a passion for it, a true passion to help people, and not just a passion about your sport and yourself, then unfortunately it's hard to actually succeed in the fitness industry. I think as well is during my career, and what I've figured out is everyone just doesn't want a six pack and having that kind of hard abs, or the woman that must decrease body fat. It's more based on how they feel and how they move. And you notice this through your career. I was when I used to work for Virgin, it was all about fat loss, and it was about gluten, eggs and dairy, and removing gluten, eggs and dairy, and it'll be the means all, the ends all, and you'll decrease this body fat, and it's very aesthetics. And during my career, what I've noticed is that it's not all about aesthetics, it's about how you can give someone longevity, and that's based on their life. So how they can put health and fitness and whatever that looks like into their life. And a big passion I have is influencing families as well. So if you're working with a mum or you're working with a dad, is to influence the actual children as well, or the family. That gives me great kind of satisfaction.
Okay, so when we used to work together in Virgin Active, and to give anybody maybe listening to this context, James used to do an awful lot of body recomposition stuff and fat loss stuff, and he was very, very good at it. And he had a couple of people that he got really lean and extremely jacked. If you don't know what jacked means, it means very muscular. And you shouldn't be listening to this podcast, you know what I mean? Joking. So basically just like he would get really, really good results, and it would cause quite a stir with a lot of the guys, because it would make people wonder how he was getting results, and it would cause a bit of bitterness and jealousy. I've always found it very, very interesting because there are really, really good results. So you did that in the past where you got fantastic results, specifically with a couple of people, and specifically one person who will not actually mention, but amazing results where it used to make everybody in the gym turn their head. So you've kind of been down that route where you have done the body composition, fat loss, getting people abs, doing that really successfully. So I think it would be different if you hadn't done that, because then you wouldn't have been through that experience, so it wouldn't have the same sort of gravity to the change. It wouldn't hold the same sort of weight. So what got you to change, or what made you change from that to your process now, or how you kind of think about things?
So the big thing is that just stopping and one day and understanding what I actually want from life, and what truly makes me happy, and how that a set of abs, that if you've ever done a 12-week transformation, or if you've ever been in shape in a way that you look at yourself and you're like, wow, it's like an obsession, it doesn't make you happy. It really doesn't make you happy. It gets to a point where you have to ask yourself, well, what truly makes me happy as a person? Because it's really easy to project that onto other people. And when you can figure that out for yourself, you can start seeing things when it comes to clients or people that you're working with. And a big thing is that they just want to feel good naked. And that usually doesn't mean a six pack, usually doesn't mean like kind of, as long as they feel that they're comfortable within their own skin, that's good enough. because this isn't just for, this isn't just for a couple of years, it's for the rest of your life. And you're looking at fitness and health in general as being a way that you can kind of maintain that well-being. And it's not all just about lifting weights, trying to get as jacked, trying to get decreasing body fat as much as you can. There's so much more to that. It's so complex. And I think that's it, is I did a course. This would have been 6 or 7 years, which is DTS, which is Kevin Darby. And one of the things was all about mobility. And again, it was the thinking of, well, we want to be mobile, to move. And that doesn't always equate to having a six-pack or looking a specific way. It's more about a feeling. So yeah, that's how my kind of story came about.
No, like that makes a lot of sense. So, like even within that, I guess the stuff that I've kind of learned from you, because I would have been very much like goal orientated personally, or very focused on achieving something, but then achieving something and then forgetting about that I achieved it and just looking at the next thing. And you never really become particularly content in that scenario. And I like goals. I think they have a lot of value. But I know the way I would sit and have a conversation with someone now based upon what they want to do is based around things that you have said or who's being influenced by it. And also, I guess, because your mindset changes slightly as you get a bit older. And like one thing in particular in significance is when we all sat around together and you said, right, everybody tell me what your reason for training is, and everybody described it through a feeling, and you were like, exactly, it's a feeling. And I was like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And then when taking that and applying it to somebody and then saying about even if they focus upon how they want to feel, then everything else kind of
a natural byproduct is
and it's crazy, and it works really, really well. And I was like, that is such a simple concept, but it's hugely lost upon people. And within how you feel usually comes in a lot of things outside of that, like what ties into how you want to feel about yourself. And I think if you lose track of that and you're not fantastic at saying that, you can become massively goal orientated and then very focused on 12-week transformations and things. So like we've both done the program that we offer through our gym, and so to kind of go back in this. So we do have a 12-week transformation. However, what we use it for is a kind of a bit of a burst. So if we have someone who is very fed up in the circumstances that they're in and kind of needs to see change, to believe there can be change, a program like that can be really helpful, and you can create a lot of momentum and ride off that. So if someone just doesn't believe that they can actually make physical changes, it's going to be a lot more body composition wise. Something like a transformation that we use will usually just kind of ignite that, and then they'll see things happen quite differently and go, actually, I'm not stuck in my current situation. There is something I can do about that. And you take that momentum and you run with it. It's great. For other people, it's not a fantastic scenario. And we both did it. And I know I personally found off at the back of it, it was hard because you went from something so intense and so goal orientated and so goal focused, and then suddenly you're in a bit of a limbo. You're like, well, what do I do now? And then I jumped into the bodybuilding competition and ramped that up even higher, and then it came back off of something so goal orientated and was just like, what do you do now? And you kind of get lost for a bit as to, well, what's the next step? And that's, I guess, when you make that transition, or I know I began to think, well, actually, what would I even do all this for? And then kind of find your feet. And we've seen that with the likes of Donnelly. Donnelly's one of our other coaches, same idea, same process, and you come off the back of it and go, that was so intense and it was great, but now I've just hit that focus or hit that goal. I don't really now know what to do next. And I think it's almost taking that back and saying, well, why is it you train? Why did you do it? And what is it that you want to feel like, or what are you really training for? And a case of getting people to really tune into that aspect of the real reason behind their why they exercise or why they do anything, which is something obviously we now try and implement into the gym, and something that you preach pretty hard. So if you're, let's say you have someone that you're speaking to and you're trying to get not to the depths of their why, because that could end up with tears. But I guess
the thought process behind where I can. Okay. One of the first things is just ask them thoughtful questions and I listen to them. But what I asked them to define their health and fitness. What does it mean to be healthy, or what does it mean to define their own health and fitness? And then kind of that will give me an idea of what they see important to themselves. And then we can kind of just go from there. So usually it can be something like define your health and fitness. I like to feel strong. Well, why do you like to feel strong? Well, I like to feel strong because anything that comes up with in work that is hard, I feel that I'm strong. I've got that mental resilience to get past and actually keep pushing on in the work. And people use exercise for other reasons as well. And defining health and fitness, it can be as simple as I want to feel, and again, I want to feel like I could go out with my friends to go and play a game of football. Like a feeling, like they want to go and run, and understand that the feeling of what their definition of health and fitness, it's huge. So even like to increase energy or to help with sleep, because it's really easy to give your own definition of this is what it means to be healthy. However, if you don't ask the question to the individual, then you never actually figure out exactly what it means for them to be fit and healthy, because everyone's different, right? Like your definition of health, fit and healthy is very different to mine. We've been talking about it the last couple of weeks in GTG, is just defining deep health, and we came up with like exercise, the 80-20 rule, which is a moderation, clean air, water, and having a purpose and things that you do, what's your why? And these are all things that you can define as deep health. So it was a conversation that we had, and that's what I do with members. I figure out exactly what's important to them, and then just relate our training program and our actual whole ethos of GTG around it. Because
No, sorry, I didn't. Is that you?
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
No, I was thinking just obviously trying to find out what's important to them, and if you push that right too quickly, this is a conversation we've had together quite a few times. What do you usually find then comes up if you push that too soon, or what do people usually present with?
If you push it too soon, they will come up with generalized, it's a very easy way to turn around and say, well, what's your goal? It feels like they have to give you a number, or they have to, I want to be X stone, or I want to lose X inches, or I want to, lift X on the bench or the squat, and it's something that's nearly preempting. So you have to just be mindful of who you have in front of you, right? Like that's really, it comes down to the individual. So when it comes to talking with a member, or the first thing is hitting that consistency, regardless of their nutrition and regardless of their training sessions. It's hitting that consistency in the sessions, and then things that they can do outside. And usually if you focus on one thing and then just implement that.
How long do you think it takes? I know you can't really always give a number on this, but roughly what's the timeline for someone? Let's say you initially start asking, so what do you want to do, or why do you exercise, or why is it important to you? And they give you like a number or something, and they straight off start looking towards, I want to lift this or do this, and it's very number specific. How long do you usually find it takes to transition that? And what would almost be like this switch that would happen, or when they suddenly go, okay, Eureka, I understand what you mean.
So if you have the conversation, first of all, and you preempt them and you talk about goal setting, you're preempting them in the way that you're trying to give you're saying to them, like, what is your goal? So they have to think, well, to get out of pain, but also to drop body fat and so on and so forth. At G2G, it's a little bit different because we have a group coaching model. There's a lot of things that actually go on. So coming into the group is to figure out exactly what you want to achieve in G2G. So we actually have a goal setting the month, a month in. That can take, so that's the first contact. Now, usually you're talking anything between the first month where they're starting to become aware of it, but you're talking anything between 3 to 6 months before you're kind of getting that eureka moment. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. It's a system that you have to create, and it takes time, and it takes practice as well, right? It just doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. I always kind of wonder, because it's such a quick thing for people to go to, and I just kind of wonder how much of it is almost like conditioning, where
right.
they're just so used to giving that I want to be this or be that or whatever. And I think, like, obviously we've got into really long conversations about it before, but as to where that even kind of comes from, it's just that aspect of numbers, like I want to be a size 8 or I want to lift this. You know, is it direct comparison of yourself to other people, or, you know, where does that even stem from? I mean, that's probably like a separate podcast in itself to talk about, but it is like people go to that so rapidly, like so straight off. And as you say, if you've mentioned before, if you push them on it, like they'll straight away go for, well, I just want to be this, or I want to look like this or something. They find it hard to really say, this is why that's important to me. And that could just be a trust thing as well, I guess. But it seems to be,
I mean,
huge.
Right, so like a you know, you could have effectively on the surface that they want to look a certain way. So, you know, they give you a picture and inspiration of social media, or they talk to you in a specific way. They want to lift a specific weight, or they want to look a certain way. However, really, when you really dig down into it and you go into the subsurface kind of stuff, they just want to feel comfortable. And they don't really know how to actually tell you that they just want to feel comfortable within themselves. And that does, you're right, it does. That takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of communication, and they will tell you when you're ready, and you can't tease that out of them, unfortunately.
So, for instance, when you're saying about feeling comfortable, and I remember, like, well, most stuff, if things come up, I usually try first off to relate it to myself and gather an understanding, and then like extrapolate that and just really feed it to other people, or understand it from an outside perspective. So I thought about when I maybe wasn't too comfortable at certain parts, and I was like, well, why is that? And I thought back, and immediately you think back to a time that you were comfortable. And then you think, well, when I was comfortable, I had X, Y, and Z. And you try and recreate that. I remember thinking, that makes no sense whatsoever. What you're actually looking for is a feeling of this. So how do you get that feeling back? Don't look for the same like environment that you're in or something, or all the other factors, which you have a conversation with someone, they usually do think about that. I remember I was happy when this, and it's like, don't try and recreate that and do it again. We noticed like that with some like bodybuilders, for instance, like they really enjoyed how they felt before competing, and then they find it really hard to let go of that, so they forever end up in a like
that cycle,
the dieting cycle, and being there. So like, I kind of wonder, you know, it's more, not to be sexist because it's not, but it's more prevalent in females than anything else, is the size thing, like being like size 8 and things like that. And then whether that kind of comes from like a magazine or something saying tough, you will be happy with your size 8.
It's tough. I mean, you know, if we were to go out on the news agents now and go and lift 5 or 6 women magazines and look at the propaganda that's between diets, the way the clothes have to fit, the way that you have to act, and then again you've got all these kind of social media, and you go down and you can scroll down. I mean, you know, like sometimes it can be damaging to who you are, because it's not it's not reality. Like when you look at these kind of celebrities or supermodels and you look at their body and you're like, wow, that's amazing. However, you know, they have Photoshop, they also have touch-ups, the makeup, hair, all this kind of stuff that in the real world it never really happens. So you're trying to compare yourself to someone that probably will never ever happen. It's like, you know, you would get a meal and they'd be like, I want a 6-pack, and then they would show you like a ridiculous picture where the reality and the perception of thing is just, it's so skewed. It is unbelievable. I'm going to train twice a week, but I want to look like this, but it doesn't work like that. Anyway, I'm away on a rant. Anyway. Going back to your point, identity is a big thing. Who you are as a person. An interesting point about this is if you think about you as a person, and then something happens in your life and how you actually change as a person. So you could be someone that's quite selfish, and then all of a sudden you become a parent. So you know that you are selfish in nature, but now that you have to change your identity to effectively become a parent, and that changes you in a way. Fitness and health can be like that as well, is the identity of who you are when you start with, and it could be that you're obsessed about counting macros, it could be that you're obsessed with looking a certain way. Something happens, so let's relate this to members. Members end up getting injured, and that's when they actually do something about it. Until something actually happens, they'll not do anything about it. They're not actually ready to change. I've got a sore back. Well, does it hurt you that much? No, I can just kind of manage with it, right? Or I've got a sore hip. Does it bother you? No, I can just kind of keep going. There's gonna be a time where it's gonna get more severe, and effectively what's going to happen is they are going to need our help. Yeah. So yeah.
There was a kind of a break in the talk there, because Gavin, who's recording for us, told James not to hit the table, just in case you were kind of anybody is listening is curious. Right. So see, with the injury aspect of it, which is different than anything it gets presented from more of an aesthetics point of view. And obviously you've then touched on that part where a lot of people don't do anything until it becomes a problem. And we do hear that all the time. It's like, well, I've got a sore this, I've got a sore that. And unless they find that it affects them, they don't react to it at all, or they don't seem to even tie it into why it might be an issue, especially if it's very aesthetically driven anyway, very fat loss based. It doesn't really matter if their shoulder is falling off, the main goal is fat loss. With people who are more recovering from injury or have an injury, which is a big part of the population that we deal with, it's the majority. If you're kind of going through goal setting with them, or you're trying to have a conversation about what they want out of their exercise, does it differ, or what does that look like in those kind of conversations?
So the first thing is, when they join G2G, there's a bit of frustration there, and it's to manage expectations. So it's to understand that the first thing that they have to do is create consistency. But bear in mind that this member has done things before, it hasn't worked, and there's a bit of frustration there, and they need help, but there's a trust and communication process there. So the first thing that try and instill with each member is actually consistency, turning up for sessions, understanding that it's going to be uncomfortable in regards to the learning process, because it's different than what you've kind of done, but stick with it and then kind of go from there. And then from I like to find out what their passion are, or what they like to do as an activity, and I try and think about them. Well, you were skiing last year and your back was sore. Well, how did that make you feel? Okay, well, you were skiing this year and your back wasn't sore. Well, how does that make you feel? So straight away I find out about their activity, and I try and just relate how G2G as a system is going to help them get back to their activity. Or it could be as simple as I can't chase my kids, or I can't keep up with my kids because of my lower back. It's agony, I have to sit down. So to be able to understand that using G2G as a system to get back to doing these things that you love to do is huge. Because a natural byproduct, because when you think about health, the definition of health is a social, a physical, and a mental well-being of a whole person. And it's the reduction of kind of disease as well. So
when you think about health, naturally, the member that's coming in, they're not going to be physically healthy because they're coming back from an injury and they need help. Now, what you'll notice is that will have an aspect with their social aspect, because someone that's injured doesn't want to go and socialise with their friends, or they don't want to go and have a conversation with their friends, family, because they're in pain. They feel like they're a grouch. It gets them down because they're constantly in pain. And this happens all the time. Then the side of it is the mental aspect of it, like, you know, dealing with pain constantly and going to the point where you're going to physios and chiropractors and trying different methods and approaches and figuring out that, goodness, you know, why is this always happening to me? Why is this? Why can I not get to the bottom of it? So to give someone that kind of, you know what, we're going to be able to help you, give that someone that the mentality, give them someone the resilience that it's going to be hard. However, we're here for you as a supportive environment, but also just as somewhere that you can actually do your movement and understand that you're here with coaches that understand your move,
your movement,
yeah,
understand movement,
understand movement,
So it's maybe put you on the spot a wee tiny bit, but if you had I was going to say three things, but if you can give three or more, you know, great. Three things that you would say are pretty key for someone to, I was going to say get results, but be successful in terms of what they're trying to achieve within, not even within what we do, but just in general. So, you know, when you talk about consistency, but the stuff that you see usually becomes a big barrier, because obviously we've seen different barriers across loads of different people, and sometimes they're not even aware of it being a barrier.
Learn how to be uncomfortable, because through your process, regardless of what you're doing, you're going to become uncomfortable. Commit to the process, truly commit to it. Ask yourself, am I giving this 100%? You know, if you have obstacles, well, then figure out how to kind of, you know, how to overcome them obstacles. A big thing is time. And the question I ask, well, how important is it? How important, can you make this a priority, or is it a priority? Because you can find time to do things that you need to do. And then the third one would probably be, that is a good question.
Because something you're saying, which I would kind of wonder, just if the third one, without putting words in your mouth, is like support network. So you kind of mentioned, like, one thing we obviously try and focus on is creating a support network. But if you speak to someone and they have a support network through their friends or family, they're usually pretty successful. With someone who maybe doesn't, or their social network is more ridicules them or something. I guess it doesn't happen quite so much with injury. It may be a bit more aesthetically, but definitely, like, if that's a barrier in some sort of way, that's usually a real issue. Or
I mean, that's a good one. Like, to be able to go into sessions and understand that you're in a group of like-minded individuals. And when I say like-minded individuals, it's something that's kind of bastardized as like-minded individuals and like-minded individuals. But what I mean by that is that you just have a shared purpose, and the shared purpose is, you know, recovering from injury, but understanding how your body works, and everyone's different. And this is why G2G is a little bit different, is because what we really want to do is empower our members, but also is to they also want to understand how their body works.
Yeah, I think there is a huge part of it with you know, the empowerment and self-sufficiency aspect of you've mentioned about the uncomfortable aspect, and how actually, like, long-term success, which I think as people get a bit older, they start really focusing a bit more on long-term. I guess if you're, like, when you're younger, it is a bit more, what can you get there and then, and you don't think too far ahead, and you get older and it changes a wee bit. And I think long-term progress or results or anything really comes with a multitude of different factors, like, you know, the environment that you're in, if it's a supportive environment, if it's like-minded individuals, you know, Do they have a shared purpose? If you do have a shared purpose, it's easier to bond together and stuff, easier to feel a part of something that breaks down that barrier of feeling so uncomfortable as well. Because usually, like I say, a lot of times people have that issue about understanding that this is going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to get to a point where you realize it's hard, and that comes at different times for different people. But that's not going to last forever. And I remember Laura saying this. Laura is one of our other coaches. People really do get stuck in that aspect of thinking this is going to last forever. They can't think that there's an end to this. It's like, no, there's going to be some part where this is no longer uncomfortable, and actually the barrier towards doing this is going to seem quite small until it gets to the point that it's not going to feel uncomfortable at all, and there will be no barrier. It'll be quite easy and then enjoyable for you to do it. But they usually don't see that far. It's comparison before of like, if you start playing like an instrument initially, you can't play a note. You realize you're really, really crap at it. But at some point you're able to play a couple of notes, and all of a sudden you're able to play a song, and then you enjoy it. But if someone sat down and said, take out that guitar and you can't play anything and play me a song, you're like, this sucks and it's embarrassing. And it's probably, it's not that far, but it's usually not that compared. And I always just think, especially within our industry, people have this feeling like they should be good at it really quickly. Like, it should come naturally.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not how anything works.
The interesting thing is that, strength is a skill, and it's not, you can't learn it overnight. So you can't learn strength overnight. And if you look at it as more of a process, and you look at it as that you're creating sustainability, we want to do things for a longer period of time, it's creating that mindset of this, you're in it for the long haul. This isn't just kind of, a quick fix, 12-week kind of blast, and then the stuff that you learned in them 12 weeks, you can't kind of implement it into your lifestyle, because it's really not truly meaningful to you. It gets you from A to B, but then when you're at B, this is going back to your goal setting. What do you do next? So G2G, it works on, we take you to A to B, but then we ask you the question, well, how do you get from B to C? So again, we want to know, and again, I talk about this, empowering our members. That's what we like to do, is to empower our members.
Which is true. It's probably a word that's overused, but like it's true. It is something important.
If you have another, empower,
If anybody can think of a better
words, answer.
Yes, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, changing topic slightly, I'm going back particularly more to you. What going forward from here? Like, what would you like to do? So obviously, the way when you started off. Personal training, and then health clubs, and then moved into more doing private stuff, and now into what we have as our business model. What would you like to do, I guess, like long term?
Long term, I would like to grow G2G. So I want to have more than one centre. I feel that the ethos that we have is different. With three kind of Aidan, Ollie, and myself, we're three different skill sets, and in business it's a little bit unique, especially in the health and fitness business. And I feel that we can open many more sites. Where really I would like to develop in my career would be the nutritional aspect, and that would be to deliver to corporations. The challenge that we have is we're an aging population, and with an aging population we have other kind of millennials that are coming up behind them. So the aging population have to be as healthy and as fit as possible to cope with that demand of the millennials coming up. If you think about when you were growing up and when you were in your mid-20s, and you think about the 40s or the 50s or 60-year-olds, you used to think, oh, well, were they as fit or were they as healthy as
the ones before them?
As the ones before them. Yeah, exactly, right. I can see that health and wellness, whatever way you want to look at this, is gonna be huge. in the next 5 years. And a big aspect is going to be the mental side of it, the mental health. The last 5 years, there's been a lot of stigmata when it's talking about like kind of mental health, and it's okay to talk, and it's getting a lot better that, you know, men are programmed. Yeah, what's wrong with you? I'm fine. You know, I'm a man. I'm meant to take all that, and that's not okay. You know, we all need to talk, and we all should have a deep and meaningful conversation with our friends and our family, and even just listening to your friends and your family, it helps. It just kind of just helps to kind of take that load off. In G2G, like, you know, with all of us, there's a mental component of us training. And exercise, and we all have a story, and I think that's why we're so unique in regards to the company. But when it comes to nutrition, my big thing is I focus more on the how to eat. So it's not the what you eat, it's more on how to eat. So it's managing your energy levels, your sleep, your stress, understanding your internal hunger cues. All these kind of things link hand in hand with G2G coaching as an exercise, because it's creating sustainability, and it's giving the members the tools, again, the empowerment to actually live a long, healthy life. I just had a wee bit of a waffle there, but
no, it's good. Yeah. No, I get it. No, that's all like really important. I think like it's more just curious as to the part that you find pretty motivating at this point, because obviously I think it just develops and it changes. While the overall concept of what you're aiming for is similar, maybe the ways that you're doing it is slightly different. So, you know, at some point, I guess what I'm trying to say is you want to help people. And at one point, maybe the big focus was a very aesthetically driven part. So you focus so heavily on that. And then over time, what you think is important changes. And then the way you want to do it changes. I think we all do that. So if at this point, your big focus is the nutrition aspect, it's more just why do you find that part right now so interesting? You've said about the aging population, millennials. Yeah. Is there anything else? Is there any other aspect, or like why go down that route specifically right now?
So, because I can see that there's a demand for this, and the stuff that's out there at the moment. My why is to inspire people to live a healthy, happy life. And if I can go into a workforce and implement a nutritional program that's based on how to manage energy, stress, and sleep, and help to create social, physical, and a mental well-being of each of the workforce, and improve that, then that's my passion. I have a real, I think it comes from, passion for nutrition comes from really helping people, because when it comes to nutrition, there's so much information out there, like what should I do? I heard you do this and do that and stuff like that, and people get overwhelmed with the amount of information out there. So if I can make something simple that they can implement, and it's truly meaningful to them, then that's probably where the passion comes from. And then on top of that, then we've got the training program or the exercise program that can kind of go hand in hand. So yeah, no, that completely makes sense. I think that there is a lot of information, and even in our industry, whenever you're part of it, you have better insight and understanding of it. But then you kind of get to that point where you realize that most of it doesn't really matter that much. And people get very focused on things that don't matter, kind of put the cart before the horse, and start asking you things about intermittent fasting and ketogenic diets and things, which all completely have their place, but have their place once you kind of understand the basis behind why to focus on your nutrition, or the reason why you'd want to, and maybe that's not a great idea, or just kind of understand the basics. And I don't mean the basics in terms of like understanding calories, but just, you know, stuff that you would do with people, which is focusing on like
hunger cues and, you know, do you even know when you're hungry, and you know, how do you determine when you're full and things like this. And then, well, why do you want to eat this way? Why is it important to you? Something I've said for ages, which is true, is that I only kind of eat a certain way because it fuels stuff that I want to do. You know, it's the only reason for doing it. I don't just focus on eating a certain way for the sake of it. It's like, well, if I do this, it helps me feel a certain way, and then I can exercise a certain way, and also, you know, feel a bit better throughout the day, which allows me to basically work longer hours and stuff like that. It's got a kind of purpose behind it.
The thing is, like, with nutrition, it's never linear, and what I mean by that is it can change. Your landscape can change, so you can, you know, again, I'm not trying to be grim, but there can be death in the family, there can be marriages, there can be new kids that come into your life, there can be breakups, be a whole host of things that change your nutrition, that you transition through life, that again your nutrition will change. So if you follow a diet plan, or you follow an intermittent fast or something like that, these are all kind of methods. This isn't stuff that you can use as like a real truly like a tool. Like internal hunger cues is something that you can take regardless of how you're feeling, regardless of what you're going through in your life. You can take this internal hunger cue and you can practice it. One thing that I advocate to everyone is eating slowly, and whatever way you want to do this, is eating slowly is something that nearly gives you back time. And let me explain. So if you're constantly rushed and you're kind of always in a rush, by taking 20 minutes whenever in the week and sitting down and enjoying a meal, what you're doing is you're becoming present. You're being mindful in actually what you're actually eating, and you're giving yourself that 20 minutes to nourish your body. It's very powerful, and it's one of these things that I would recommend anyone to do, is sitting down and eating slowly and giving yourself some time to enjoy the food that's in front of you.
So that makes a nice segue into stress, because while I stuck pretty heavily at eating slowly, I debate quite a lot whether it's something I enjoy eating slowly or not. I think I just really enjoy eating fast, and just seeing how much I can consume before I vomit, which isn't great for portion control either. But it's really good if you're competing with a dog. But
really Labrador.
The idea of definitely like of not just sitting down, which I would fall in the habit of sitting in front of a computer and eating, and then thinking, this is madness. I don't really need to do this. And instead actually sitting, and although I'll still try and wolf the food down, pay attention to it. It definitely is helpful. It's probably a hard thing to do, but even then questioning, like, well, why are you just, you know, not really paying attention to what you're eating? And I know that's difficult. Like if you're, say, working for a company where they encourage you to take your break at your desk in front of a computer, that doesn't help at all. Wonder if it is really necessary to do, but it seems that as, you know, people have higher levels of stress, that becomes more prevalent, and people don't really pay a huge amount of attention to what they're eating, or taking the time to be present whenever they eat it. And then stress is huge. So I want your thoughts upon stress and what we kind of see with people at the minute in terms of what their stress levels are like. And then next thing from that is, do you have any insight or suggestions into stress management or
anything like that? Okay. So when it comes to stress, again, it's sort of like defining health and fitness. It's having a conversation and defining what stress means to you. Because bear in mind, your stress could be different to mine, Aidan. So, you know, the last thing you want to do is try and make a judgmental call. So you have to figure out exactly what you train a lot more than me. So your physical stress, you could handle a lot more. So if you put me on 5 days or 6 days a week compared to that would stress my body.
There's also the aspect of like if all the cutlery in my flat isn't at right angles, then I also crack up. The physical stress.
stress can manifest in a whole load of ways, and the big thing is to understand your own stress and understand the fingerprint. And what I mean by that is, when you get stressed, do you get agitated, or do you withdraw? Do you stop eating? So it's figuring out exactly what your stress fingerprint is. A good analogy is, if you can imagine, you've got work, you've got family, you've got your physical exercise, and then you've got all your other commitments. And imagine that they're on a gas burner and you've got them all fully turned up. Unfortunately, when you have all them fully turned up, that there's so much heat coming off them. So if you're wanting to spend a lot of time in your work, the other 3 gas burners are going to need to come down a little bit and somehow. So if you're going to spend more time at work, then your other commitments are going to need to come down. You can't kind of juggle this. If you're going to train more, then obviously that your work is going to need to come down as well. So everything is in moderation, and you need to figure out your own stress fingerprint, and you also have to figure out what you define as good stress and what you define as bad stress. When it comes to stress with members, the very first thing to work on is sleep. And the challenge you have with sleep is, are they ready to change? Are they willing to change, and are they able to change? And when someone's ready to address their sleep, then that's when you can kind of implement. You see, when it comes to stress, human beings don't be like to be told what to do. So you have to wait for them to be ready for change. So you have to ask them, are you ready for change, and what are you willing to do? And then that's a conversation, and that actually helps. Because another thing as well is, when it comes to stress, is the whole thing about being perfect. The being perfect, like the perfect holiday or the perfect body or perfect weather. An analogy is like you're trying to chase a unicorn over a rainbow. Like, it just doesn't happen. It's just true.
What?
Yeah, it's true. And when you start thinking about the present and what happened to just good enough, like if you're trying your best at something and you feel that you're trying your best, you can't do any more. You have the perfect side of it. The just good enough is something that you can use with your nutrition, with your training, with your work. And by understanding that you can't control everything, the only thing that you can really control, this is insight for you, is your own behaviours. If you can control your own behaviours, then everything out of your control, try not to control it. Easier said than done, but it is an insight of understanding that you can control your own behaviours. When it comes to stress and it comes to work stress, a couple of things that you can do is, obviously, number one is take a lunch and get away from your desk. Are you ready? Are you willing? And are you able to do that? If you're not, can you go out for a walk or do something that gives you back that kind of time, and you be nearly selfish if you can. If that's not feasible, then I always recommend having a family dinner if you can, which is going home, eating with someone. If you can, eat slowly and enjoy a conversation. And another tip when it comes to stress is gratuity. I am massive about gratuity. And what I mean by it is, what are you truly grateful for? Because it's really easy to turn around and say, well, I don't have this, and this. However, when you really stop and you think that when you're in your present and what you're truly grateful for, it can actually help to reduce stress quite a lot.
Just when you said about gratuity, I just had this mental image of people just thinking, like, whenever you take
not gratuity.
Whenever you take like the debit card machine and it says, do you want to add on a gratuity, and people going, like, is she going, like, just wipe it out your bank account, tipping people.
Yeah.
No, I think that makes an awful lot of sense. And then the analogy of the gas burner is pretty cool. But yeah, like, people don't really, I'm not saying something I'm personally fantastic at, but don't tend to really think about like stress and willpower all coming from the same source, whether that's physical, mental, anything. They just see it as if you come from separate areas, and then don't really understand why like you say, if you're going to turn up the burner on one side, it's got to be turned down on another. You can't have them all going at max. And most people do seem to then run it at max, and then you ask them like, well, what do they sacrifice? And it's like sleep. Like, well, that's not a great idea. No, I know it's something that I used to try and sacrifice, because it's dead easy to let in a thought process that to be hardcore is to sleep 4 hours a night, and that's what you should do, especially if you're in business. And it's absolute nonsense, and it has such a bad impact. But you start thinking that that's what you should do, and there isn't an aspect in the stress to be perfect, and that being good enough is not enough. And that's I think that's heavily pushed. I don't think it's coincidental that what comes with that is massively heightened stress and probably an increase in mental health problems. But you do see that, and you can definitely see it within the people we talk to, and even just within social circles. And it's very hard to wrap your head around that idea of only having so much reserve of willpower, only being able to tolerate so much stress, and recognizing is probably the huge part as to where that also impacts. I think most people are really bad at that. And then obviously you did that Instagram post on self-compassion, and it was massively liked, and that's something that I'm reading an awful lot about at the minute, which is huge, and is probably something that's worth people trying to practice a bit more of, and not giving yourself a massively hard time.
Yeah, I mean, like with self-compassion, you know, it's being in the present, so it's a non-judgmental understanding that we're humans, so we don't have to do things in isolation. Everyone makes mistakes, regardless who you are and what you do. We make mistakes in life. It's just part and parcel. Then the last thing is just be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Like, when you think about self-compassion, try not to beat up on yourself. You make a mistake, okay? You made a mistake. I'm just gonna brush that off and kind of just try go again, and just try and be improve 1% each day, just nice and slow and controlled, instead of trying to have this 100% beating yourself up when things don't go. You know, it happens. Just brush yourself off, get up the next day and start again. Practicing self-compassion is a big thing as well. Understanding that we're human, understanding that we don't have to do it in isolation. We make mistakes, and being present, being mindful, and being truly grateful of things that you have instead of the things that you don't have will help to reduce stress.
Yeah, no, I think that makes complete sense. We will probably need to wrap this up, so I'm thinking, just as the last point, if you could, in terms of stress and energy, and maybe you've already just said or answered this question really, is if you could think of a couple of things that you would advise someone implemented to begin with to help with heightened levels of stress and low energy levels, what would you advise?
So heightened levels of stress, and again, this is going back, is define your stress and look at it and ask yourself, are you ready to change? And figure out what the root of your stress is, and ask yourself, are you ready to change? You might not be, but there'll be something that you will be able to change on that journey. And I look at it as that it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. What was the other thing you asked me?
Just in terms of the energy levels, like
energy levels. So again, when we talk about energy levels, it's very individual, and it's defining energy levels and what does improved energy levels look like to individuals. So getting a good night's sleep is something that helps. If you can, I would try and get some daily activity, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes a day. Ideally, if you hit 10,000 steps a day, for the health properties of it, it's fantastic. I think I've talked about this before, is that if you imagine you're only doing 3,000 steps at the moment, you add 500 steps a day for the 7 days, and then the next week you go to 4,000, and you just add that. And what that does is that creates that kind of resilience, and you're just chipping away at kind of at a goal. Having deep and meaningful conversations with your friends and your family is something that helps with stress. And being open about that you're under stress and defining your stress and figuring out what is causing you the stress. Because stress, it can be short-lived, which means you can go for personal growth, or it can be sitting, hanging around your head over and over and over again. If you're stressed at work and there's something that's stressing you in work and it's a long-term thing, define the stress, figure out the root of the cause of the problem, and ask yourself, are you ready to change? Are you ready to actually address this?
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anything else?
No, that's everything. That's pretty cool. Okay, we shall finish up there and probably come back to a few points on that in a separate podcast.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
So, like, because I know that I waffled there a lot, and then I kind of was like, oh man, I went off on a tangent.
No, you meant to go off on rants and tangents.
Are you?
That's what I was trying to encourage you to go off on rants and tangents.
Bye, everyone. And tweet them.
Cheers.